Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. Back in the 90s, when email was still new, one of the first viral emails I received was a commencement address to a group of high school students. The person who delivered that address was Guy Kawasaki. Guy is very well known, and for those of you who don't know him, you are about to hear from a man who has done a lot with his life so far. He worked closely with Steve Jobs as one of the Apple employees originally in charge of marketing the Macintosh. He would go on to writing 16 books, work as a venture capitalist, sit on the Wikimedia Foundation Board of Trustees, and become the chief evangelist for Canva. These are just a few of the things he has done. He is also a husband, a father, and later in life, he became a hockey player and a surfer. He started surfing at 60. If you look at his Wikipedia page, you will see that it reads like the story of a Renaissance man living in Silicon Valley. Guy has been a hero of mine for some time, and I finally got to meet him when I was emceeing the Palo Alto TEDx event where he was one of the speakers. Guy crushed it on stage, but as you'll learn, he had no way of really knowing because he is deaf. Guy is also the host of the Remarkable People podcast, and his newest book is called Think Remarkable. The book is outstanding with a foreword by Jane Goodall, and it has received praise from many greats, including Carol Dweck and Robert Cialdini. You'll hear all kinds of wisdom from this wise man. Coincidentally, the title of his autobiography is Wise Guy, and it's one of my favorite memoirs. And a key takeaway is something I believe we all want to learn: how to be remarkable. Guy Kawasaki, a hearty welcome to Super Psyched.
Oh, man, I've been waiting 28 years for this day.
Me too. I was just telling you, that Palo Alto commencement speech you gave in 1995, I think it was one of the first real viral emails that was just going everywhere. Everyone was reading about how you should live off your parents. And it was so funny and so wise. And then, of course, you write my favorite memoir in recent readings, Wise Guy, which is not the topic of today's interview, but folks, just download it and listen to it on Audible. If you want to feel good about life, this is gonna make you happy. You have a way, whether it's your spoken word at the TEDx event where I was emceeing for you and you brought down the house. Folks, if you're familiar with Guy, and I'm guessing you are, you already know what I'm talking about. And if you're not, there is an entire world of now 16 books, but it starts with Wise Guy, of Guy growing up in a tiny hood in Honolulu area called Kalihi, which is not rich, and his father who had the willingness and the foresight to send you to Iolani School, which is one of the best schools in the country, where you played football and it catapulted you over Stanford. Then you became a jewelry sales rep, and then you work over at Apple and work alongside Steve and do all these incredible things. And just your story and your incarnations throughout this life have been totally fascinating, inspiring. And I believe that you've kind of figured it out, and you start surfing at 60 and playing hockey. Anyway, folks, I'm just here to tell you, this is the guy.
Geez, that's quite a little introduction here. And you know what? Because I'm deaf, I have no idea what you said before me. And I don't know what you said after me.
Nope.
And I don't know how much applause I got. I have no idea. Seriously. So that's why I reached out to you and Ronit and asked how it went, because I really didn't know.
It's so moving. So here you are, almost in a black hole, not knowing how it went, and you brought down the damn house. So, my parents and my family couldn't stop talking about you. Did you see that One of the things that you brought in, I'm just going to start with this. And I've been talking about it for 2 weeks. You brought in a video of a girl, unbeknownst to the audience, your daughter surfing, getting mauled by a wave, but she somehow stays on the board and she ends up riding the wave. And you use it as a metaphor. Can we just start with that one? Because it's like the best thing I've heard. It's maybe the best key to life.
Okay, so I have to explain a little bit about surfing. So most of surfing is spent sitting and you're looking out to the ocean, trying to make the right decision, the right wave, the right direction, the right timing, the right amount of force, all that. A lot of decisions to make. And in this case, my daughter was in the wrong place and this wave was about to just crush her. And instead, she turned and she paddled and she caught the wave and she stood up and got even a cross step out of this. And I took a movie of that just purely by accident. And I looked at that. I said, you know what? This is a metaphor for life because most people, they put all the emphasis on making the right decision, find the right spouse, find the right company, the right product, the right service, the right book, the right everything. And that wave is a metaphor for how life really is, which is you take your best shot. There's no perfect decision. And then you focus on making the decision right, as opposed to making yourself crazy, trying to figure out if you made the right decision. And this is my goal for that video. So the other video that I hope everybody has seen is called like the shirtless dancing guy in the field, right? So this is a video, just Google shirtless dancing guy in the field. And this is a video that shows a guy at a music festival. And it's a white guy and he's like dancing in the field like crazy white people. And he's dancing and he's all alone. And you look at him, you think this guy is a nut. And after a very long time, a second guy joins him. So now there's two lousy dancers dancing in the field. And then a long time goes by. And then more people start joining. And pretty soon, everybody's dancing. And that's a metaphor for new technology and new product adoption. When you're the founder, you're the nutcase solo guy. You find a co-founder. So now it's two of you nutcases. And then eventually you get everybody to embrace your computer or your website. And that's when you succeed. So if you watch that video and you watch the video of my daughter making her decision right, basically your life is set.
You know, my thoughts are bifurcated at the moment. I'm thinking of two different things as you share this. The first one is this ancient Roman art of fear setting the Stoics practiced. And it was thinking about when you make a decision, it's so perplexing to make a decision. And if you do it in the way your daughter did, like making the wrong decision right, so to speak, you make a choice and you evaluate what's the percentage of chance that things will go badly. And what will I do if it does go badly? So it's kind of a belt and suspenders approach. And your daughter, in a split second, just was a metaphor, a living, dancing moment for that. And then when you describe guys dancing in the field, and I love that, there was a 1990s video of a band called Blind Melon, whose singer sadly has passed. But it starts with this girl tap dancing in a bee outfit and everybody laughing at her. And you see her walking despondent through town and everybody's pointing and laughing at this girl in a bee suit. And she ends up in a park just crestfallen. And then you see her look up and there's an entire park full of people in bee suits. And so it's both in terms of being like a founder of a company or feeling somehow ostracized and not knowing where your tribe is.
Adam, the truth is that that's how it was to be a Macintosh user back in the 80s.
Yes. Can you say more about that?
The book is called Think Remarkable. And that's a play on the advertising campaign by Apple called Think Different. So in 1997, Apple did an ad campaign because in 1997, if you were thinking the same, you used Windows and you used MS-DOS. But if you were thinking different, and this would be people like Pablo Picasso and Richard Branson and Amelia Earhart and Albert Einstein and Gandhi. If you were thinking different, you were thinking like them and you were using a Macintosh. And then
Right.
one day you wake up and hey, there's a lot of people using Macintoshes. They're in the same bee suit.
It used to be kind of a defiant thing to have the Apple logo. And
Yeah.
some people even put it on their PCs that weren't Apple. I know you mentioned that Michael Dell was one of the people who predicted Apple's downfall. I know Michael has done very well. And I take nothing away from him. But I mean, everybody, when Steve Jobs came back to Apple in the late 90s when it was already bankrupt, I was kind of like, yeah, good luck, Mr. Jobs. You're not going to be able to save this company. And now it's richer than most countries.
And I have to tell you that I left Apple twice and I turned down Steve Jobs for a job after I left twice. So, in my perverse way of looking at life, I think that whenever I leave Apple, it does well. So, for the shareholders and customers of Apple, I have made the ultimate sacrifice and I will never return there to hurt the company. I'm just an unselfish kind of guy,
You're an
Adam.
unselfish kind of guy. And one thing I want to throw your way is correlation is not causation.
I keep telling myself that. Yeah, but me being at Apple could have a causative relationship. It's not just a black mock turtleneck.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, you talk about it in Wise Guy. You brought in some pretty mad money to that company. So you did all right for that company. But let's get into Think Remarkable for a second. What a great title and what a great homage to your background, your tenure at Apple. And what a great homage to how you actually think. You do think differently and you've allowed yourself to be influenced by the greatest minds on the planet. Jane Goodall writes the foreword. I mean, talk about a get. And you and she have become homies. I mean, you guys are friends. That's just incredible.
Oh, so for Canva, the company that I'm chief evangelist of, Canva has a educational marketing effort and they enable people to create courseware for teachers. And so Guy has created a course on how to be remarkable to demonstrate Canva's courseware potential. And in Canva's courseware, you can put pictures and video and quizzes and all this kind of stuff. So I asked Jane Goodall to record a video. So she recorded a video for me for my Canva course on how to be remarkable.
Wow.
But wait, there's a whole great story. So I send her an email and I carbon copy her VP of communications or whatever, her gatekeeper. I send it to two of them. Immediately he writes back, says, "Guy, she's really busy. She's in Africa right now. She just can't get to this." The next day I get an email from Jane. "Oh yeah, I'd be happy to do it." Okay. So then we get online with her to record the video. And she's in Tanzania or something. And the connection is just crap. So we tell her, "You know what, Jane, we don't have to do this virtually. Just take your phone, record the video, and send it to me. That way, connectivity doesn't matter." And so she says, "Okay, Guy, I'll do that." And then the next day, I get an email that says, "I tried to do it, but I'm in Tanzania. And in the hut next to mine, they're drilling for fresh water. So it was too noisy."
Wow.
So then the next day, I get an email with the video and she's standing in some hotel room in Tanzania. She shot a video for me about how to be remarkable.
And to think that she made the distant, I mean, that's one of the, I mean, it's a metaphor and a reality. In as much as your daughter on a surfboard was a metaphor and a reality, what you just described is a metaphor and reality for how I see you. You have a way of making the distant very local. Does that make sense?
You're saying I got a big mouth?
I'm saying you have a way of, first of all, bringing people together. You have this something that you use for the good. You were talking about the kama aina rates that you get in Hawaii, which means that you're a local. But
I used to get.
Oh, you don't get them anymore? Come on. Oh, that's right.
Well, it's getting harder and harder.
But where I'm going with this is you're the closest person I've met to being a true international bridge for kind of all types. I can't imagine anybody having trouble with you. But let's actually, so I'm just saying that. I'm just leaving that alone. Here's what I'm going to ask you. Everybody wants to be remarkable in some way.
Yes.
Like that is like, I just want to be remarkable. And I think about Amy Poehler, who is one of my favorite comedians. She says, somebody's good at something. It could be playing the kazoo. She's like, wow, that guy can play the crap out of a kazoo. She'll be into it. And I think all of us need something where a place we can hang our hat and say,
Yeah.
I'm good at piano. I'm good at improv. I'm good at painting, whatever it is. I'm remarkable here. How do we find that?
Okay. So first of all, as I've gotten older, when you're younger, you start getting this edge, especially in Silicon Valley, where you think you're better than other people because you have more stock options, you're richer, better car, better house, better title, whatever. But I'm telling you, as I got older and older, I started realizing that everybody you meet can do something much better than you. Everybody. It may be that the gardener can roast a pig better than you, or his wife can make better tacos than you, or she can play the piano better than you, or he can surf better than you, or he can play tennis better than you. So if you got your head up your ass and you think you're just like superior because you run a freaking private equity, private assets, hedge fund, and now you're dedicated your life to making sure that university professors didn't violate plagiarism. I'm telling you, everybody you know is better than you at something. So you ought to shut up and appreciate people for what they can do. Everybody can do something better than you.
And you seem to be really good at that skill of shutting up and listening. I think that is actually I think that's a really important point. I was talking at a very high level with someone who's just written a book on mentorship. And the people who don't seek mentorship, who don't use their ears twice as much as they use their mouth, the way they were designed, you do that. You listen. In spite of the fact that you're deaf, you listen exceedingly well. And I'm just wondering, who have been the voices that have mattered the most in terms of helping you figure out your own areas of remarkability?
Well, it's kind of an ironic discussion we're having because I'm deaf. So I may have two ears and one mouth, but neither of them function very well. So that must mean I'm really smart because I can overcome the lack of hearing, right? That's how I look at it. Yeah. So some of the big influences. First of all, there was Brenda Ueland. She wrote a book called If You Want to Write. And I highly recommend that book, not just if you want to be a writer, but if you want to do anything creative. So speak, write, make movies, podcast, make music, make movies, whatever, anything creative. You just substitute that word for write. And Brenda Ueland's book will help you a lot. It helped me a lot. Second influence is Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset. Without Carol Dweck, I don't know where I'd be, but she really just opened my eyes that, guy, you can either have a fixed mindset and just think that you are all you're ever going to be, or you can have a growth mindset and try new stuff. And I link my learning to play hockey at 44 and surfing at 60 directly to Carol Dweck. So that's two. And then the third woman is probably my wife. So we're seeing a trend here. I've had very, very big influences by women in my life. And you know what? If you look at my podcast, I think it's 60 or 70% women. I thought about one day, why don't I just call this Remarkable Women?
I noticed that in your book as well. Even the photos you got Brandy Chastain, you've got Stacey Abrams. It seems that women have been spectacular mentors to you. Here's this macho guy from Cialdini School who played football, probably pretty hard, and doing really, from a cultural standpoint, culturally masculine stuff.
Like what?
And like selling like a badass for Apple, like becoming the chief evangelist for Canva by being involved at it really, really kind of these very conventionally masculine pursuits.
Okay, I want to point out something. The CEO of Canva is a woman who is half my age. So someone who's truly secure can work for a woman half his age. I love telling people that. It freaks out a lot of men that they cannot imagine working for a woman, much less a woman half their age. And I just revel in the fact that I do that. It's like it makes their heads explode. I think if it was up to me, women would run this world because I think that men have had about 2,000 years and they've shown no ability to run this world. So I think women is our last great hope.
I remember seeing a really great talk by the fellow who found the Titanic, or I should say, found the resting place of the Titanic. And I believe his name is Robert Ballard. I'm over at Flint Center, a very important place for Apple. And I'm watching this man give a talk on if you want to do something good for the planet, increase literacy and education for women, because there's a high correlation between oppression of women and oppression of general human rights. And the more women are empowered, and this is not me bashing my own gender, I happen to love men very much, but yeah, women need a much bigger voice. And Lenny Kravitz even sang a song about that. Like, let's give women a big turn at the podium. We kind of need a change.
When people read Think Remarkable, they will see a predominance of female examples. They will also see the most diverse group of examples. I have more Black and brown people in my book than all of the Republican Party.
Yeah. And I know, and I imagine you take great pride. I'm thinking also about Temple Grandin, who's been on my podcast and who I know you're a big fan of. And she said, not only in terms of color and gender diversity, but she speaks very strongly about neurodiversity. She says that if somebody had her visual strength that is attributable to her autism spectrum, that the Space Shuttle Columbia would not have exploded. The error would have been detected by her or anyone like her. So she really throws down a really hard argument for neurodiversity as well. So,
and if the person who made the call to ignore the warning about the O-rings was not a man, Columbia might not have crashed. I believe that too.
Oh, good Lord. So let's get into it. You were born Nisei, I believe, Sansei in Hawaii, where you were part of a slight minority not long after the war. So it was like a rough time, I'm guessing. Let's talk about diversity in your childhood.
Okay, well, let's just be honest here, okay? So growing up in Hawaii, Sansei, the Japanese Americans, we were the power structure. Okay.
No kidding.
Yeah. We did the oppressing. We weren't the oppressed. And if you think about it, I think there was one tiny internment camp in Hawaii, but it certainly wasn't like LA where you take all the Japanese and shove them into a camp in the desert. And so I don't want to paint a picture that I overcame all this great prejudice, et cetera, et cetera. I was born and raised in Hawaii. It was a great youth, and I never ever thought I was inferior or that race held me back. And I mean that for my whole life. And it's just Hawaii is a very diverse place. And I came to the mainland, and when I met mainland Japanese Americans, man, they're a whole different breed. I mean, they were just coming from, the trauma of the internment camps and stuff, which is something that just never happened in Hawaii. It was a very different world. And my parents and my generation being raised in Hawaii, we wanted to prove that we loved America more than anything else. So we had something to prove. And that's why you hear about this 442 battalion, highly decorated in World War II. So the Japanese Americans were fighting for the country that interned them. Wrap your mind around that, right? And it's because those Japanese Americans wanted to prove that they were American now. They're not Japanese. And so I had the best of both worlds. I was born in Hawaii, raised in Hawaii in this kind of good status. But then when you applied to college on the mainland, this is so long ago, when you applied to Stanford, you check the box, Asian American, and you're considered a minority. So I think the standards went down. This was so long ago. Asian American was considered a negative. So it helped you get into Stanford. Today, you got to overcome that.
Simply amazing guy. Let's get back into the remarkable component for a moment. And yeah, I'm just wondering if you were working with someone, let's just say, imagine someone's nephew who you love comes over to your beloved eating establishment, which we will not reveal on this podcast. And he says, listen, guy, I'm remarkable in no way. I'm 21 years old. I've nearly finished with college. I was told I should do this. I was told I should do that. I don't seem to know if I have any talent or really exuberance for anything. What do you do with that?
Okay, so I tell him, you're 21 years old. You're going to live another 70 years. I think you can chill out for a while. That's number one. And number two is, I think that person has been sold a bill of goods. And the bill of goods is that you can find and you need to find your capital P passion. You're 21 years old. You don't have your passion yet. You haven't created a not-for-profit to bring fresh water to Africa. You're not a billionaire yet. Well, like, what's wrong with you? You're an underachiever, which is total bullshit. So my theory is that you should pursue a lot of interests as opposed to passions. Interests. And you scratch a lot of interests. Maybe you're interested in making movies or writing or podcasting or surfing or whatever it is. Pursue it. Scratch a lot of itches. And along the way, you probably will find 3 or 4 things over the course of your lifetime that really turn into something you love. And so chill out, because in a sense, to use a dating analogy, what if you're 21 and people start telling you, oh my God, you're 21. You're not married yet. What's wrong with you? You need to find your passion. Well, I got to tell you something. You need to do a lot of sampling before you find your true love, right? You can't just decide one day, okay, today is the day I'm going to find my passion. I think that's, to put it mildly, suboptimal. So the thing is to have this growth mindset and be open to things that strike your fancy. And another fundamental problem I think people experience is they hear this theory that I need to draw 3 circles. So in circle 1 is all the things I'm good at. In circle 2 is all the things that I like to do. And in circle 3 is the things that I can make money at. So you put these 3 things together and you say, okay, at the center, that's what I want. I'm good at it. I like to do it. And I can make money. That's a nice theory, but I don't think that Venn diagram explains life. And I would say a more relevant Venn diagram is, I like to do this. I'm not good at it. And I cannot make money. And when you find that, you found your passion.
I'm not good at it. It will not make me money. And
I love it. I still love it.
And I still love it.
That's the test.
That is absolutely brilliant. We're going to get into Ikigai in a little bit. But before we do, I was recently talking to, this is a name drop, but I'm doing it anyway, Bob Lefkowitz. He's a Nobel laureate in chemistry, one of the highest H indexes of all researchers. And he said, pursue what is meaningful. Dory Clark, who is one of my favorite human beings on the planet, said on my podcast, what you said, pursue what is interesting. And you've also said, pursue joy. I think that those 3 things are really, really important. And that 21-year-old needs to be open to stuff. I'm going to throw out one other idea. And this one comes from Will Schwalbe. I just interviewed him yesterday. He wrote a book called We Should Not Be Friends. He's a gay man. One of his closest friends is a former Navy SEAL. The idea of we should not be friends was based on the fact that here's a gay guy and here's a super butch male guy. Back in the 80s, they thought we should not be friends, and they are the closest of friends, proving that the human connection can transcend just about anything. But one of the things that Will said is one of his life hacks is he makes it a point every week to go do something he's not interested in. He makes it a point, even at his age now, 62, he still goes out every week and does something that's not interesting to him because he knows that there's a chance that he might find it interesting.
Wow. I never thought of that.
That's a good one, right?
That is a good one.
I'd never
Although, I got to tell you, in my case, I kind of am interested in so many things that it would be hard for me to find something I'm not interested in.
Well, the idea of starting surfing at 60, it's so funny. Here's this Hawaiian boy who is on the mainland, starts surfing at 60. It's a very hard sport. I've done it. I've only done it once because it was just so hard on the shoulders. I was like, oh yeah, this is a one-time
But
deal.
there's a lot can be explained with surfing. So the first question is, why did I wait till I was 60, especially when I grew up in Hawaii? I literally never surfed as a kid. And looking back, it's because I had not yet read Carol Dweck. I had a fixed mindset. I had a fixed mindset that I was a student and I played team sports. I didn't have a growth mindset to pursue something like surfing. In Hawaii, we say, make ass. I didn't want to make ass.
What does make ass mean?
Make ass means you embarrass yourself. You make an ass of yourself. So if you've never been surfing and you're now 60, you don't want to go out there and make ass.
I found that one of the keys to life and living a good life is making ass a lot. I speak fluent Japanese. The amount of times I had to make ass in order to learn Japanese. And the number of times I had to make ass when I was living in Japan with size 13 shoes in the Genkan, which are really, they say the bigger the shoe, the lower the IQ. And they're negatively correlated. And so I was making ass all the time because here I am, a Westerner, completely making a buffoon out of myself all the time. And I think that's the jam. My father started learning Spanish at 59. He was a homestay person in his 60s in Costa Rica with a younger mom. His mom was 38. He's in his 60s. You got to make ass.
First of all, make ass would be a good name for a book.
I'm in.
And what's wrong with America, or much of America right now, is that instead of making ass, all we think about is kicking ass. We want to kick ass in war. We want to kick ass in politics. We want to kick ass in business. Everything is about kicking ass, when really we should be making ass. We should be humble enough to try new things and risk embarrassment and vulnerability. Because the irony is, by being willing to make ass, you eventually kick ass.
Truer words have not been said. And Brene Brown says that a precursor to anything that is courageous is being vulnerable. For somebody who's a seasoned paratrooper, jumping out of an airplane is just like breathing for him. For me, it would be a massively courageous thing, and it would require a lot of vulnerability. Let's talk about some of the times that you've been vulnerable in addition to surfing and making ass.
When you start podcasting, you're making ass. When you start writing your first book, you're making ass. How many times did I get rejected in 1987? I wanted to make the very logical career shift from jewelry manufacturing to personal software, personal computers, right?
It's a no-brainer, of course.
I got a lot, right? That's how you would plan your career.
Stanford jewelry, then Apple. Of course, that's logical.
I connected the dots looking forward.
That's amazing. Yeah, you're borrowing from Steve Jobs, connecting the dots, looking backward.
Yeah, that's the only way. Listen, if you can connect the dots at any point in your life, you're fortunate. If that sixth grade teacher had not convinced my parents to put me in a private school, if they had not made the sacrifice, I would not have gotten into the private school, which would mean I would not have gotten into Stanford, which would mean I would not have met Mike Boych, who gave me the job in the Macintosh division purely on our friendship and our mutual love of cars. He had great cars, and I wanted great cars. And so now I'm making a reputation for myself at Apple. And a woman named Ronit Widman, she somehow hears of me because she's a Mac user. And she's running TEDx Palo Alto. And I don't know how, but she booked Jane Goodall. And she reaches out to me and says, Guy, I have Jane Goodall coming, and you don't know me, but I know you because I use a Macintosh. Would you like to interview Jane Goodall? Like, holy shit, would I like to interview Jane Goodall? Yeah, cancel everything. Where do I go? And then I become friends with Jane Goodall. And then years later, I ask her to be my first guest on my podcast. And let me tell you something, Adam. When your first guest on your podcast is Jane Goodall, it's very easy to get guests from that point forward. People ask you, well, Guy, who have you had on your podcast? I said, I just had Jane Goodall. Have you heard of her? And nobody ever says to me, Guy, you just have second tier guests. I'm not going to be on your podcast. So now fast forward a little more. Now Jane Goodall and I are buddies, and she's on my podcast twice. And now, years later, I ask her to write the foreword. And her PR person says no, and she says yes. And that's why Jane Goodall is the foreword in my book, because a sixth grade teacher at Kalihi Valley Elementary School made me go to a private school. That's the dots.
Let's name that teacher. Do you remember the teacher?
Her name is Trudy Akau. And I can remember a teacher from when I was, 13 years old. I cannot remember the name of the person I met this morning. I hope Trudy Akau is up there saying, oh my God. There's another lesson related to this connecting the dots, which is if people read this book or look at this book and think, oh, I got to be a Jane Goodall, an Elon Musk, a Steve Jobs. That's not true. You can be a Trudy Akau. Trudy Akau, I'm sure she influenced other students, but she influenced me. She made a difference to one person, me. And for that, I think, and I know actually, I consider her remarkable. So you don't have to sell 20 million computers, or you don't need to sell 20 million electric cars or all that. You don't need to win a MacArthur Fellowship or a Nobel Prize. If you're a teacher, it could be one student. It could be one player as a coach. It could be one stream in your backyard that you cleaned up. That's what it takes to be remarkable.
So beautiful. And I'm thinking about the teachers and how they have the capacity to turn our light switch from the off position to the on position, as well as possibly connecting the dots moving forward in a way. Also thinking about a hilarious moment. You and I have both done 200 podcast episodes. You and I have both learned a lot from our people. Probably many of them have been mentors without even knowing. One of my mentors was actually my son's fifth grade teacher, who's far younger than I am. I'm old enough to be his dad, probably, but that would be Mr. Zach Sleep. I interview this fifth grade teacher and he says, I have nothing. He literally said, I have nothing to say, except for the fact that he had everything to say. And his episode behind the scenes with a fifth grade teacher has more downloads than Steve Kerr's, which is unbelievable if you think about that. And so I'm here at my 20th high school reunion, and I ask everybody I talk to, who was your favorite teacher in high school? To a shocking degree, the number of people who said Senor Davis, the Spanish teacher, it was like 50%. It was way overrepresented. And I asked each and every one of them, did you ever thank Senor Davis? And without exception, they said no. They asked me if I had, and I said yes 3 times informally. And so many people thank the person in the eulogy, and it breaks my heart. One of the things that I would want to advocate for, if I could even share that with you, it would be thank people while they're alive.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to send a message to Carol Dweck today.
Love that. Can I tell you something
absolutely.
else crazy about Senor Davis? Because it's just way too funny not to. My father, who also said he had nothing to say, who was episode number 150, when he was 59 years old, said, I want to learn Spanish. I told him, hire Senor Davis as your private tutor for Spanish. They met together for about 20 years.
Wow.
I know. Up until the day that Senor Davis died. So like crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a great story. I have a Senor Davis in my life. That's Trudy Akal. There was also an English teacher named Harold Keebles. One of the things I learned is that the toughest teachers and coaches and bosses are the ones that do you the most good. But it takes you 20 years to figure that out. When you're in the middle of it, you want the easiest teacher, easiest boss, and easiest coach. And over the course of your lifetime, you realize that was a mistake. I'm not saying go intentionally look for the hard ass, but if you wind up with a hard ass, you'll come to appreciate that. I mean, I truly do believe that. This is one of my real pet peeves in life is that these teachers, they're making 50, 75 grand. And they're using their own money to buy school supplies. And they work all weekend grading papers. I have a teacher in my book named Kelly Gibson from Rogue River, Oregon, population 2,500. So I know what her life is like. And I just cannot wrap my mind around that the most valuable resource in the world is your youth.
That's right.
And who influences your youth the most? Teachers. So just rationally, you would think with our most valuable resource, we should put the most resources for the most valuable resources. And we pay teachers like shit. Why don't we buy one less aircraft carrier? Okay. Let's just like maybe have one less war or maybe one less subsidy for big tobacco or something like that. Just scrape up a few $1 billion and take care of teachers. I do not understand that at all.
That may be the best thank you letter we could give to teachers is properly paying them.
Yes, that's really tangible, right? But you know what? I mean, there's a lot of successful people. And I got to believe a lot of successful people are where they are because of their teachers. So you would think that all these successful people would somehow take care of their teachers. But you know what the problem is? And it just shows you how short-sighted and maybe shallow people are. If you go on these campuses, you see that there's a building with a name on it. And that building costs, I don't know, $5-10 million. Well, if you gave $5 or $10 million to the teachers, you wouldn't have a building with your name on it. And I swear to God, it's because the building has the freaking plaque. That's why people give money to it. Why don't they give money to teachers? I guess you could endow chairs at universities, but anyway, it's because people want to see a freaking building with their names on it. You will, Adam, I promise you, when Canva goes public and knock on wood, this book is a bestseller, you will never see a freaking building with my name on it. Never. And I tell you something, I love Stanford. Stanford was instrumental in my success, but it does have 50 or 60 billion dollars, right? If I give money, or I'm going to give it to the California Community College system and the CSU system. I'm not giving it to Stanford. I have friends at Stanford, and there was a time a few years ago when Stanford cut out sports like wrestling because Stanford didn't have the budget to support the wrestling team. Excuse me, you got $60 billion. You cannot support the wrestling team because wrestling is a non-revenue sport. There's no TV rights. There's no whatever, right? The football team's budget for one weekend is bigger than the wrestling team budget for a decade, probably, wow. Right? Oh, I mean, I don't understand that.
As I hear you speaking about that, somebody could say, oh, that's just trivial. It's just sports. And I think to myself, oh, sports are not trivial at all. In fact, I would even go so far as a psychologist to say sports save lives. People need something to be good at. Art saves lives. Don't
yes,
put the art
music.
Mr. Holland's Opus, I don't know if you remember that movie with Richard Dreyfuss where he plays a music teacher and, you know, you see the budget get cut and it's like, don't cut music. Like, these things are really important.
I would cut calculus before I cut music.
Because ChatGPT will be able to handle most calculus in the future. Yeah. But
no kidding.
You were talking about the 3 circles, and I know that you're not just a guy, but you're a guy who's into Ikigai, and we're going to explain what Ikigai means for those who don't know. But Ikigai is a life-changing Venn diagram. I remember when I first saw it many years ago, I thought to myself, damn it, how come I didn't come up with this one? This is so good. And it's tight. Do you want to talk about Ikigai a little bit?
Yeah, well, Ikigai is this Japanese concept of your calling in life, your reason to get up in the morning. And Western civilization has said it's the holy grail of what you like to do, what you're good at, and what you can make money at, which I completely disagree with that definition. I think it's the thing you would do even if you're not good at, because you have a growth mindset and you are willing to sacrifice to become good at. And you do it whether you make money or not. And for me right now, my Ikigai has been writing for quite a while, but I say podcasting is my Ikigai. When I started, I don't know if I was good at it, but certainly it didn't come naturally. So I was not good at it. And I did love it immediately. And I can tell you with great pride that I have no advertisers and sponsors. And if you took all the expenses for producing my podcast, you would be astounded at how much money I lose making my podcast.
Yeah.
Astounded. It's thousands of dollars per episode. Well, my podcast, I have a sound design team that works on it. I have a marketing person, Madison, my producer, and there's like, trust me, I spend a lot of money on my podcast.
Wow.
And knock on wood, thank you, Canva. Because of Canva, I have a very, very expensive hobby. But I say to myself, well, some people play golf, some people gamble, some people drink, some people do drugs, some people buy art, some people have mistresses. I have podcasting. Who's to say your vice is better than mine?
I have not had this conversation with anyone on my podcast, but this is exactly how I feel. Somebody asked me recently, when do you think you'll stop? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, never, as far as I'm concerned. How do you feel about it?
If nothing else, I have convinced myself that podcasting is a very good way to delay and hopefully prevent dementia, because 52 times a year, I have to figure out a new subject. And it could be cello. It could be spinal cord injury. It could be basketball, figure skating, soccer. It could be particle physics with Stephen Wolfram. It could be astronomy with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It could be dystopia with Margaret Atwood. It could be cooking with Andrew Zimmern. It could be influence and persuasion with Bob Cialdini. It could be vaccination with this professor at UCLA. And then I have these people who have undergone gender transformation. I have people who have served 22 years in prison and become an artist. And let's just say that 52 times a year, I got to figure something out enough to have an intelligent conversation. I have to do a lot of research and reading. And I think most of my peers, they're probably just watching Fox.
Right. I mean, whereas you're engaging actively and upgrading your software and firmware every week, you're having an upgrade. And I agree with you. And the research agrees with you that if you want to ward off senility or other things that could decay the brain and you want more neurogenesis, learn new stuff. Learn new stuff. Neurogenesis has to occur.
Well, the research I've done says there's two things. It's learn new stuff and physical exercise. So I surf 2 hours a day, and 52 times a year, I need to figure out a new subject.
Wait, Guy, you're saying you actually surf 2 hours a day? Santa Cruz water's cold. You surf for 2 hours a day in this cold stuff. What's it like?
Well, Adam, let's say, number one, God and Jack O'Neill invented wetsuits. So that's number one. Okay. So there is technology to throw at this problem. But I'm telling you, for people who have never tried surfing and you want to be productive and hardworking and diligent and disciplined, let me give you a piece of advice. Do not take up surfing until you can dedicate a big portion of your life to it, because it will take over your life. Okay, so there's 365 days in a year. I bet you that I surf 300 days a year.
Wow.
I bet you. You would think I'd be better for the amount I surf. Surfing is truly ikigai. I'm not good at it. I love it, and I cannot make money at it.
So what's it like when you have those 2 hours for yourself and it's just about surfing? What is that time like in your day?
It's the high point of my day, because there's just no feeling legally obtainable where you're moving along, not pedaling, not polluting the earth with petroleum products and all that. And you're just going down the wave. And part of the beauty of surfing is that it's so hard. If it was easy, if it was just rolling down a hill, but surfing, there's so many variables. There's the wind, the water, the direction, the other people, the kelp, the board, the fin. And especially if you're not good at it like me, you totally have to focus. And I suppose someday if I get good and I don't have to focus, maybe I will no longer like surfing. But right now it like takes every synapse for me to surf.
So I got a whack question, but I have to ask it. You said that unless you have the time and energy to give to surfing, don't take it up. And I'm wondering, what have you received from giving so much to surfing?
Well, I mean, I'm constantly in a state of happiness, for one thing. Hey, Adam, seriously, if I had discovered surfing in my youth, I would not be on your podcast. I might be cleaning your house. I might be making cappuccinos for you. I might be cleaning your yard, but I would not be on your podcast as a guest. And my only role at TEDx would not be as a speaker.
So what do you imagine that alternate universe would have been like? Would you be a happy guy and a Ziki guy, or would you be perhaps less happy with that version?
I don't know, Adam. I mean, this is one of those things like maybe if I had fell in love with surfing early and I would just have this mellow local Hawaiian life and I'd be perfectly happy. But I'm telling you that my career in surfing would have been mutually exclusive.
It's a lover that takes all your time.
It is.
And yet you also described the kelp and the other surfers, and I'm guessing you've probably had maybe a collision or maybe some beef with other people.
I have caused many an injury, and I've had many an injury. That's just, it comes with the territory.
Have you ever been worried that you might die out there?
There are times when you fall off the wave and you're tumbling in the water and you think you've been underwater for 20 minutes and it's really been about 3 seconds. And the water is, you could stand up. Now, my daughter, by contrast, she surfs at Mavericks.
Oh, come on.
And she's a total badass. I don't know how she does it. She's surfing waves that are 3, 4, 5 times bigger than her.
Come on, man. Those are nasty waves. Those can swallow you up like a monster.
Yep. It's not easy being a father.
I imagine. Do you watch her do her thing?
Nope. I do not watch her at Maverick. I watch her surfing in competitions, but not Mavericks kind of competitions. And like that wave that you saw in the video that we started this podcast talking about, that's about as nasty as it gets. When she goes to Mavericks and with her boyfriend and they're towing each other out on the jet ski, I just dread if my phone rings. Because if my phone rings, it's probably not them telling me how they had the greatest ride in the world. And especially if the phone rings and the phone says unrecognized number, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, man. Oh, I really just feel for you. I'm not sure if I'm going to say this correctly, but I remember being a young father, watching my son take the stairs for the very first time. And my buddy Bob, who's just a font of wisdom, saw me freaking out. And he said, Carlos Castaneda said that when you have a child, it's as if God has carved open your chest, taken out your heart, and put it out in the world.
Yeah.
And when I hear you say that story about your daughter riding Mavericks, your heart is out there in the world.
It's my heart and my lungs and my brain. It's everything.
It's everything, man.
All that's left is epidermis.
The skin is left behind. Is there anything I should have asked but haven't yet asked you, Guy?
It's a funny story. I once interviewed for my podcast Dion Cersei, and she's a New York Times reporter. And she said at the end of my interviews, I always ask people that. And so for a while, I did that. And most of the time, people said, no, you kind of covered it all. And I got to tell you, so when I am in a podcast, either as guest or as host, I'm in such a state of flow. You can tell how much I enjoy this and how much, I wouldn't say easy, but I'm very comfortable doing this. I'm really in flow, right? And so I'm not thinking about, oh, is this guy going to ask me all the questions I want to ask? I'm flowing, man. I'm touched by God, Adam, when I'm with you.
Oh, man. And I feel it. I mean, when I met you, I was so stoked because you were who I hoped you would be.
I laugh so heartily because I know what you're saying. Sometimes it's a bad idea to meet your heroes. I know what you're saying.
I got one question, though. Let's get into it for a second. Yeah, you did not ask to become hard of hearing or deaf in to have a cochlear implant. What have the unexpected gifts, besides not having to answer at a Q&A, what have been the unexpected strengths?
Okay. So first of all, very pragmatically, if you're deaf and you're surfing, when people are pissed off at you and yelling at you, you don't hear it. So it doesn't affect your psyche. Yeah, seriously, Ed, I go out there, I say, I'm deaf. You can yell at me all you like. I don't care. Have at it. That's a beautiful thing. So that's one benefit. Another benefit vis-a-vis surfing is Jerry Lopez. I interviewed him about 2 weeks ago, and he said, Guy, when you're out there in the lineup, don't talk to people. You should be focused on the waves and focused on surfing. So I have a built-in advantage because there's no sense in me talking to people because I cannot hear what they say back. So that's another advantage. And it's a pain in the ass. But when you think about it, nobody ever died from being deaf. Nobody. So if God said to me, Guy, I'll give you a choice. You can either be deaf or you can have pancreatic cancer. What do you want, Guy? If God said to me, Guy, I got a letter of agreement right here. One day you're just going to drop dead. But until that day, the worst thing that will happen to you is you're going to be deaf. I would sign that deal right now. If God said to me, Guy, none of your kids will ever die before you, but you're going to be deaf. Show me where to sign. I would sign that in a second. I would bring my own notary with me to sign that. So I think it's all relative. And there's a woman in my book and a woman in my podcast. Her name is Andrea Lido Pete. And 10 years ago, she was diagnosed with ALS. With ALS, you're supposed to usually die within 3 to 5 years. She's lived 10 years. And when she was diagnosed, she decided that she was going to complete a marathon in all 50 states.
Oh my God.
And so I look at that. I say, Guy, this woman has ALS. She's losing the ability to talk and to swallow and to move her limbs. And most people die after 2 or 3 years. She's been alive 10. And you're deaf. You're lucky, Guy. That's how I look at it.
So you count your blessings.
I count my blessings every day.
I gotta go with one. I just love being with you so much. I'm holding on. One last question. You do think different. You do things remarkably. And you tickled my brain when you suggested the notion of success oblige.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Lay it out.
Okay.
That will be a second to last question.
This is one of my proudest accomplishments that I hope I can establish a new buzzword because nobody has ever used that word. So noblesse oblige is the concept that the nobility have an obligation to the peons and lesser fortunate people. And I hate the concept of nobility like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and the royal family. But I do believe in success oblige. And success oblige is the concept that if you are successful, it's not just because you're an awesome person. Lots of things had to fall into place. Good fortune, good health. People helped you along the way. Teachers, coaches. So when you are successful, you have an obligation to help others be successful too. That is success oblige.
Beautiful. My last question, and this is the magical one I ask everybody, but I got to ask you, Guy. If you had the magical powers to confer upon all humanity one insight or skill that would improve the lives of individuals and perhaps even society at large, what would that insight or skill be? And how do you imagine it would impact people?
I would like that magically all politicians gain adequate appreciation for the value of education. That would be my wish.
That would be part of success oblige.
Yeah.
I mean, Guy, thank you so much for blessing me with your wisdom and your generosity and kindness. This has been a blast. This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.